Hello everyone, this is the demonstration video for task 4.1p persistence layer. So, in this task, we are required to implement the prototype of full API implementation and set up the persistence layer. So, the key learnings from this task include understanding of persistence or data access layer. Here, we learn the importance of having a separate layer for data access, which in which helps decouple the application logic from the database implementation. This enables easier switching between different database systems without significantly impacting the application code. Then, the database design and implementation. Here we gain the knowledge about designing and setting a database using PostgreSQL. This involves creating database, creating tables, defining relationships, and seeding initial data into the database. Then we enable the database connectivity to understand how to establish connections between our application and the PostgreSQL database using the tools like Azure Data Studio, NPG SQL, and the .NET data provider for PostgreSQL. Also, to learn the data access methods, to implement the methods for data retrieval, insertion, update, and deletion in the data access layer. This involves writing the SQL queries and using NPG SQL for database interaction within our .NET application. Then integration of API controllers to integrate with the data access layer and to provide the data to the application endpoints. Then we learn the database backup and schema generations. These methods to generate database schema files for backup and documentation purposes using tools like pgdump. Then understanding how to choose a database engine suitable for cross-platform development and how PostgreSQL fits this requirement. Then we understand database administration to focus on the insights of basic database administration tasks like setting up the tables, database, etc. So this task provides a basic understanding of building a connection using a database with an application along with ensuring security and adherence to the basic practices. So it's the foundational knowledge for everyone working with databases in software development. Now let's jump into the code. So starting with the program.cs. So here we initialize our builder and the builder for our application to using the web application create builder, and also we are initializing our app for hand configure the http pipeline and the routes. And here we are enabling the https redirection to redirect our http request. And this is all about the program.cs. Then we have our robot command.cs. This is basically the class for the robot command table. Here we are defining the fields, the properties of robot class, which are id, name, description, is move command, created date, modified date. These are the properties with get set. And also let me explain why this question mark is this operator is used with the description. So basically this is a null operator, and it is used with those fields or those properties for which the value can be null. So here the in robot command the description can be a null. So if we don't define any type of description, it will be stored as a null. Then we declare the constructor for this class, which is public robot command with the defined parameters, and here we map those parameters. Similarly, here we have the map.cs class. So this class includes seven properties, sorry. So these properties are id, columns, rows, name, description, created date, modified date. Here similarly as with the robot command, here also description can be null. And here we are also defining the constructor for the map class. Now let's jump into the robot command access.cs. So mm, let me scroll up this somehow. So starting with the use of npg SQL. So this imports the npg namespace which contains the classes for working with PostgreSQL databases. Then we are using the system namespace for providing the fundamental classes and base types. Then we are using system collection.generic. So this uh, library imports the generic namespace which provide generic collection classes. Then we are defining our this code in our namespace of robot controller api.persistence. Now coming on to the first class, here we are defining a static class for robot command data access, and we are setting a private connection string object with the to configure our database. So this private string holds the connection string used to connect to the PostgreSQL database. The connection string specifies the host, username, password, and our database name. As we are defined here, the host is localhost, username is Postgres, password is my password, database name is SIT331. I will show you my database later after this code, after these codes. So mm, now we have defined our first method, which is get robot command. So here this method basically retrieves a list of robot commands from the database. This firstly we are initializing a list of robot commands, and this creates an empty list to store the robot commands retrieved from the database. Then we are creating a npg SQL connection object named CONN. So using the connection string defined earlier, the using statement ensures that the connection is properly closed after its scope. Then we are opening that connection to the database. After this we are defining uh, a variable named cmd. So this creates a npg SQL command object named cmd with the SQL query to select all the rows from the robot command table. As you can see here, mm, with this, and then we are executing the SQL query and returning a npg SQL data reader object named dr to read the query results. So after select operation, all those queries are read using the while loop, and the while loop iterates over each row of the query result. And firstly we are defining any variable named id. So this reads the value of id column from the current row and casts it into an integer. Similarly we are doing this for name, description, isMove command, created date, modified date with their respective data types. Then at last we are defining the robot command object to creating this all these fields as a new robot command object, and we are adding this particular object or this particular data in the list we have defined earlier, which was our robot commands. So similarly it is done for the update robot command function. Here we are also defining the firstly connection, then we are defining the SQL command, which is the update table, set the particular fields from the given table. So basically this is the command we are using for our for updating any particular entry within a table. And the main key to note in all these functions, which are update, insert, uh, and delete, is that here we are using the cmd dot execute non query. Let me highlight this one. So this one is used to execute a SQL command that does not return any data, and it is typically used for data manipulation operations such as insert, update, delete, or any other DDL data definition language statements like create table, alter table. So In insert operation, when we add a new data into a database, we see the cmd dot execute known query after setting up the insert command. So here the insert, so here this command executes the SQL insert command without returning any data. It simply adds a new record to the database. Okay, now we are using the update, insert robot command, update robot command, and the last one is delete robot command. So this function is used for deleting any particular entry from the database using the parameter passed, using the id parameter passed in this function. Based on this id, uh, the particular robot command entry in the database will be deleted from the database. So similarly here we are passing our SQL query, which is delete from the robot command table, where id is equal to the provided id. And the map data access behaves similar to robot command, but for the map table. So similarly here, firstly we are defining a list of map, enabling a connection with the database. Then we are defining a list of maps. Then we are creating a command object, then the data reader object. And this function is for getting, for fetching all the maps in the from the database. Then we have the update map function, which works in similar way for the existing fields in the database. Then we have the insert map function for inserting a new entry in the database. And here also we are using the execute known query, as we have discussed earlier. And also here the last function is the delete map, which is working for deleting any particular map from the database using the id of that particular map. Now coming on to the controllers. So basically the controllers is a file. It includes a code for uh, for calling of the functions declared in the map data access and robot data access. So this one is the commands controller file. So firstly we are defining the namespace, and then we are setting a basic route for the http request, which is api slash robot commands. Then we are defining the robot controller class which is uh, from the base class, which is controller base, and this is the inherited class. So first we are setting our first endpoint, which is http get. So this will this endpoint will fetch all the commands from the robot command data access, and it is calling the robot get robot command functions to uh, fetch all the entries from the database, and show it will show those in the response page. Then we have the http get move. So this function is used to select or retrieve those fields from the robot command data access where uh, the isMove command property is true. And then we have the another get request, which is http get id. So this one is used for fetching any particular id from the database, any particular command from the database with respect to this particular id. Then we have the http post endpoint. So this endpoint is used uh, uh, for adding a new robot command into a database. Firstly, it checks if the command is null and or existing, it exists or not. Then if the command exists, it will return the conflict, else the that particular robot command will be added, and the created and modified date will be set as per the time of our system, and it will return that particular data into the response body. Then we have the http put request. So this request is for updating any particular existing entry. So it takes one parameter, which is id, for enabling any particular for working with any particular entry in the database. So firstly it checks if that id exists or not, and if it does not exist, it will return the error. And if it is null, then it will say that the command with name already exists, or if there is any other error, then then we update the modified date, because here the command was already created in the database, but here we are modifying that, so we have to change the modified date property of that uh, command, and then it will update that particular function, update that particular entry in the database using the update robot command method defined in the robot command data access. So it will not return any type of content in the response body. Then we have our last endpoint for robot command, which is http delete, and it will delete the particular robot command from the database using the delete robot command method. Similarly, with the map controllers, here the base route is api/maps, and firstly there is a get function for fetching all records from the map table. Then we have the http get square endpoint for fetching those maps for which the columns and rows are equal, means the columns and rows have similar values. Then we have the http get request, another http get request for id, for fetching the map which belongs to this particular id. Then we have the http post request for adding a new map entry to the database. It is done using the insert map function. Then we have the http put request, so it is also it is also using the id parameter, and it will not return any type of content, but it will update the existing record within the table. Then we have our and another endpoint, which is a delete endpoint for deleting any particular entry from the database of map table. Then we have the http get request for which takes two parameters, one is id and other is a coordinate. So this one is for checking that if any particular coordinate exists in that particular map or not. For example, if we have a map with id 1, and here the columns are 10 and the rows are also 10, and we are checking that any particular coordinate such as 15 comma 15 exists in this particular map or not. So it will check that if the particular coordinates are less in the map columns or not. If it is true, then it will return true, else it will return false. So this was all about the code. Now let me show you my database firstly. So this is my pg admin database. As you can see, this one is my user, this is my database named as sit331, and here we have three tables. So in this trust we are working with only two tables, which is map and robot command. So let me show you the map entry. Create script, select script. So we are fetching the map entries using a script by running this script. So when we execute this script, it will show us the entries in this particular map table. As you can see, these are the entries in this table. Similarly, we have the robot command. So we can also run the same select script for fetching the entries of robot command. So as you can see, these are the entries in the robot command. Now let me run all these endpoints in the using the postman. So firstly let me run the code. Let run. So let me copy this URL. Now let's run the commands of map first. So api slash maps. When we click on the send, it will show us the all the entries within the map table, which are the Like for id1 it is the map1 with columns and rows. For id2, for id3, for those all the ids as stored in the map table. Then we have another endpoint which was square. So it will show only those entries for which the columns and rows are equal. As you can see here, it is showing 4 entries for which the number of columns and number of rows are equal. Then we have our let me post endpoint. So let me change this one to the post. And for reference, for adding a new report, let me copy this one, paste this, and here we remove the id because it will be generated by the system only, and we set the columns which we need. So here I can set it as 80 and the rows as maybe 60 or 70, let's say, and the map is maybe map number 7, description as 7. Here we remove these two fields which are created date and modified date. So let me remove these and then click on send. As you can see, the status is 201 and this particular map is created. Let me show you this in the list of the maps. So as you can see, with id number 7, this particular map is created and the created date and modified date fields are auto generated with. Also the id is also auto generated by the system. So the next endpoint is put. So let me change this map which is added recently. So let me change this, the description as description 7 updated. I have to copy this one, sorry, first. Okay, so let me change the description 7 to updated, then click on send. It is saying 204 no content mean it is updated, but it will not return any type of content in the response field. Then click on send. As you can see, it is updated, and the last endpoint which we are using is the delete endpoint. So I am deleting this new entry which was added recently. When we click on send, it will not return any type of content, but if you see this id, if we fetch this id, then it will say not found, map with id 7 not found. So this was all about the maps. Now let's run for the robot commands. So this is for the robot commands. As you can see, it will show the entries of all the robot commands from the database. It works in a similar way. We have different endpoints such as robot command move, for fetching all those records for which the isMove command variable is property is true. As you can see, this is the result for this. Then we have the put operation, post operation, delete operation. So let me delete any particular entry from this table. For example, this id number 10. So pass this. You can also fetch this particular id as well. So using the get request, as you can see, now I am deleting this particular request. So I change this to delete and click on send. As you can see, it is deleted. If I fetch this again, it will say not found. Robot command with ID 10 not found. So, and you can also see it is removed from the list as well. So there is no ID with there is no robot command with ID number 10. So this was all about the demonstration for the task 4.1p. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you like my demonstration.